So yes, fourth webinar, this one. They've all actually been slightly linked to one another as well, in it being the geekier aspects of what you can do with Microsoft stuff. So I'll do a quick recap of the last session, which this is linked to. Now, I did the going with the flow one when I was first looking at Power Automate. So I've been using it for about a month at that point. And I showed how you can set up an automatically filling spreadsheet from a form using Power Automate. And obviously you can do that anyway from within forms, but it gives you all sorts of information that you don't necessarily need doing that way, particularly if it's a quiz. Because with a quiz, when you do the Excel spreadsheet from it, you've got the student name, the start time, the completion time. You've got the name of the question, what the response could have been, what the feedback that you gave them was, and then what their response is. So you end up with quite a big spreadsheet. And sometimes all you want is what did they answer for you, or what score did they get? And that's what you'd want to use this for. Very simple, very useful, and it makes the information more meaningful with meaningful headers for you. So what are the new things that since then I've been playing with? So we've got Boolean logic gates, which is a very fancy way of saying if this says something, or if this does not say something, or if this says something and something, or if this says something or something, do this thing. So you can actually set it up that it's reading what your students or what people are putting in to a form and saying, right, so because they've used this word or because they selected this thing, I now want it to do this based on that. We've got emails. We've got Teams messages that can come out. You can analyze Twitter feeds. So we could set one up that every time that the DigiLearn sector is mentioned as a hashtag, it could pull through into Teams for us. You can set up SharePoint access alerts. So the next time that somebody goes in and breaks a file, you don't actually need to go back into it to see who has done it. You'll have an email or a Teams message saying, this person did it, this person touched it. We can set up buttons on mobile phones that make things happen at a click. As well as Excel spreadsheets, we can use SharePoint lists for things. And we can even tie in organization user details. So I'm just going to go through a few things that I've built. I'm not necessarily going to be able to show you the working end of it and show you what it looks like at the end because it'll have personal data in there. But I can show you the back end to it all and explain through that. So I'm just going to jump over to some of my flows now. And you can see I've got quite a few different ones in here. So one that was very useful before this current lockdown was this track and trace one that I set up. So for this one, you can see I've got 5 points to it. We've got the when a new response is submitted. So with that, you pick a form for your starter. This is what's called your trigger. And there's various different things that you can have as triggers in Power Automate, from using forms, pushing buttons, having it set on a timer, having all sorts of different things in there. So in this case, it's a form. So when something is submitted to that form, I want it to get the response details from that submission for me. I then had it take the email address of the person who filled it in and plug it into our user profile data of Office. So this is the thing that when you go in Teams and you click on somebody's name, it then gives you information about them. It tells you what their email address is. It can tell you what their department is. It can tell you what their manager is, all sorts of different things. Then off that information, so the email address is their user name, basically. I'm then able to add into a table who they are. So what's their name? What's their email address? What department do they work for? And what's the submission time? And if I click on here, actually, you can see all the different information we can get from there. So this is that user profile one here. We can get their about information. So I'm just going to have to click accept all to get rid of that for us. And I'll refresh the page because of course it does. There you go. So back into that add a row into a table. So we've got about, we can get their birthday from it, their city, their company name, their country, all stuff. Some of these will be blank because it depends on what your department, what your college actually uses this thing for. But you can always get their display name. That's always there. You can get their department, and you can get their line manager, which is just under manager usually. Or actually not with this one. I'll show you where that comes through in a moment. But you can get their details, basically, what the college has on them. For us, we can get display names from student data, but unfortunately we can't get department data because we've not got that level of data in our Office 365 user database. For staff, though, it's brilliant for that. Then off the back of that, we send an email as well that confirms to the level 6 place that this person has come at that time. So that allowed us to build a very simple track and trace system. And we built it alongside this form. So when you go onto forms, and just bear with me whilst I open it up. Just find where it is. There we go. So we shared out the QR code for it. So we downloaded that, printed it on a big piece of paper, and told people they had to scan in, they had to tick the box and submit it. And that's all that they had to do. And that gave us all the details on which member of staff from which department at which time was in our fancy level 6 restaurant during the time. So that worked really well. It gave us all the information that we needed on who was where and when. Obviously, we've not used that for a while, but really good use case for it. Other flows that I've got going at the moment that are quite useful. If I go into the shared with me ones, I've set part of our yearly reviews is that as a digital team, we have to have something like 500 one-to-ones between all of us. And we've got a booking system, and I've talked about booking systems on here before, but what it does is it doesn't pick up if somebody just rings you out the blue and says, oh, I've got this problem, can you come and help me? So I've set up this feedback request button, and you can see it up here, I've got it as feedback form. And that gives me a little button that I can click run on, and I can put somebody's email address in here, and it will automatically send them the feedback request sheet. So to do that, I've come into Power Automate, and instead of setting it up from a form, I've set it up as a manual trigger. And when you do a manual trigger, you can add inputs to it, and it gives you various different options. You can have text, yes or no, file, email, number, date. So various different things on there. And what I've put there is I want a staff email, and I want you to just input that staff email. So somebody copies and pastes the staff email from the Teams information. It then gets the user information. It puts it into a table for us, using the add a row into a table. So we've taken the timestamp from when that button was pushed. We've got the display name of the person and their email address. And we've picked the user email from the button pressing. So again, looking at our dynamic content, and I really hate looking at it on this smaller screen because it's very hard. So I apologize, I'm having to zoom out, which I know makes it even smaller on your screen. So I do apologize. So from the button, the information that you can get the username of the person who triggered it. You can get the email. You can get the date. You can get a timestamp. And it goes into a lot of data. It can give you your full address of the person who's pushed that button, the country, region, the city, the state, because it's picking it up from the IP address that you've used, the postcode. It can even pick up the latitude and longitude of the person who's pushed the button for you, if you want that much information. So it is taking quite a lot from you. It stores that for at most 28 days. You can change how long you want it to store, but 28 days, and then it gets rid of that information. So I'm not using that part of it, but that could potentially be useful if you were wanting to have a log on button for people, or a shift button for people. So the Microsoft shifts things in Teams. Yeah, only missing my DNA, that's true. You may have used shifts in Microsoft Teams. That's basically just using one of these buttons for it. It's logging the time, and it also logs where you're logging in from. So it knows for your managers where you are. They have the option to turn that on for it. So just bear that in mind. If people ask you to use shifts, that's information they can have. So we go from this adding a row into a table, and I've branched it off in two ways, because I want it to be that if I've entered an email address incorrectly up here, I don't want it to break my flow. I want it to carry on going. So I go to configure run after, and I want it, whether it's successful or even if it's failed, I still want this to happen. I've got this branching coming because if it's successful, I want it to send the stuff. But even if it's unsuccessful, I still want it to send information out to me. So that's why I've got these two separate things going on here that are both identical to each other. It's just this won't actually send the message out. It'll just go, oh, no, we can't understand who you want it to go to. Whereas this one will send it out. So if I click on here, one of the options that you've got for automating is posting a message as the Flowbot to a user. Now, I can't easily demonstrate this through to people because I'd need to swap out of my instance of Teams for you. But basically, you get a little notification pings up, and it goes, Power Automate has sent you a message. And what I've done, I've set the recipient as the person I put in as the staff email, and it says, dear display name. So dear, whoever it is that staff email correlates to. We hope you are happy with the support the digital team offered today. It would be great if you could take the time to fill in this feedback form. Now, the way that the Teams ones work, if you're wanting a hyperlink in there, I'll just zoom in so you can see it. The text that you want in the hyperlink has to go in squared brackets. So we've got feedback form in squared brackets there. Then, in the more circular brackets after it, I've got the web address, and it has to start with HTTPS for Teams to understand that it's a web address for it. So that, in the Teams message, will show up as feedback form for you. This message has also been emailed to you. Actually, you can see here, it's letting me put in all sorts of data into that message. So I can put in information from the table. I can put information in from the user profile. I can put information in from the button if I wanted to, and have that go in automatically to that message. And it'll just fill it in for me. So it works almost like a mail merge at that point, and it's starting to put the data in for me. I've then got the email underneath. Now, the email works slightly differently. So I've had to put it into HTML with it. So for that to work, I put in, dear display name, we hope you're happy, and there's our feedback form button. And to do that, I had to highlight the word feedback and then press the little hyperlink button to actually put the hyperlink in. So there's my link title, there's my link target. I've also had, in the advanced options of this, I've set up, you can put in a CC, you can put in a BCC if you want to, but I've also set up a reply to option within here. So instead of this email coming from me, this email is coming from that mailbox, the canvas@blackpool.ac1. So the students, the staff are getting it as if it's from them. I can also add importance to it. Do I want it to be low, normal, high? Do I want to put a custom value in and have it as extremely critical? Look at this now. You can do that with this, and it will come up for them. Now, with this one, I've used a shared mailbox one. So I chose that I wanted it to come from the Canvas one. There are other options as well, which I'll get to in a moment with other things that I've done. But that's now showing That's what you can do with Teams. That's what you can do with a shared mailbox. And this is just using the post the message as a flow bot to a user. You can post it to a channel. So again, if I had my main thing up, and in fact, I will just try pulling it up now through the web browser. And this is where I'll have messages that I shouldn't be showing you guys, but that's how it goes. So I'm just going to jump over to Blackpool and Fylde College quickly. Quick jump into tenants. There we go. So in our digital team, we get Canvas support emails come through. And with Power Automate, you can see this is the Power Automate bot is sending a message. Thank you, darling. Do you want your sock on? Yeah. Sorry, just break for a second. There we go. So you're going to go try and find some trousers now. Go on. No. Fair enough. So this one is pulling through that there is a new email in the Canvas inbox. Who's it come from? And what is the basic content in there as well? So we can see at a glance, oh, there's something in our support email inbox. I'm going to go and have a look at that. I'm going to go try and find out what is that message there for it. With the Power Automate as well, through the chat function, this should show, yep. I get emails coming through as well because I'm always in Teams rather than in my email inbox. So when I get a new email, I've got it to send me a message saying, you have a new email. Who's it from and what it's from. I'm going to come to that one in a second. So you can see they're the things that I've done with Power Automate, and it comes through like that for me. Let's go back to some of my flows and show you how I've done it. So that is, if I can find where those ones are. Right. So this is the post a message to Microsoft Teams when an email arrives in my inbox one. And this is the one that comes to me that says I have an email. And actually, I do want to update this one, so I'm glad I'm going through it with you. So this one's really simple. When a new email arrives, post a message as a flow bot to the user. That's all that it needs to be. So I've done when a new email arrives into my inbox folder. So you can select where it goes from. So there we go. I've got various different inbox. I've just gone from my inbox one. Post the message to the flow bot as a user. So the recipient, and I want it to say, you have a new message from, the subject is subject. And I'm going to update it now and have it as, and the content is, and I'm going to click body there. So now when I get an email through, it's going to go, you have a new email from, and that's from the person. The subject is whatever the subject is in the email, and the content is, and it'll give me the first few sentences of the body there. And I'm going to have a headline of new email. There are some more advanced options in there, so I can put a summary in and whether it's an alert or not. So I want to be pinged with what the alert is. And then I'm going to press save. So that's now going to update those ones, and it recommends we test it. So let's run a test. Let's do it automatically with a recently used trigger from the one that came through 19 minutes ago. And do that test. And it failed. That's always good. Let's see what went wrong with it. It'll be that the body wasn't able to show. Yeah, the body doesn't have enough information in it. So I'm going to have to take off that part, unfortunately, in this case. So let's just get rid of that. There we go. So when it's come from an external, it's not going to work properly, unfortunately, on that one, because we get a thing that comes up. So let's jump onto the other flow I've got, which I believe is stored on here, but might not be. Shared with me. There we go. Canvas support email. That's the one. So for this one, what I've got is when a new email arrives in a shared mailbox. So I've picked which mailbox it is and which folder it goes into. And then it posts the message as the flow bot to a channel. So for this one, I've picked the team it goes to. I've picked the channel it goes to. And then there is a new email in. And again, here's those squared brackets because I want it to say the Canvas inbox. And then the round brackets so that you've got a clickable link that takes you straight to the inbox to have a look at it. And then I've got from, and content is body preview. There, that's the problem that I did wrong. I put body rather than body preview in. And I've got the headline is subject. And that has now got those messages pinging through into a Teams channel for me. So you could use this for anything. It doesn't have to be an Outlook email. You could have it as your trigger is Twitter. Somebody has mentioned hashtag DigiLearnSector. Evie, leave that alone, darling. Yes, it's fallen down. Well done. I didn't fasten that back on properly, did I? Leave it alone. So you could have it Twitter. When somebody uses the hashtag DigiLearnSector, let's send it to the DigiLearnSector team. Let's send it to a channel that is specifically for Twitter, and let's have the message go out that has, there is a new tag of the DigiLearnSector on Twitter, and you could have Twitter in there with the link to the Twitter, and it could say what it is. So there you go. There's a new one for you, Chris, to have a try of. But that then gives a lot more data for you. So these at the moment are just simple things of, yes, shameless plug for the DigiLearnSector in there, of course. So this is just simple. When this happens, do this. What happens when we want to be a bit more creative with it? What happens when you want to get that bit more complex? So as part of coming back onto campus, particularly for those who have been clinically extremely vulnerable, we've needed enhanced risk assessments done for staff coming back and saying, Evie, I know you don't feel well, darling. Why don't you get back under your covers? So if I go into the edit of this one, you can see I've got lots of other things coming into here. So with this, when a new response is submitted, and with forms, you don't, it doesn't have to be a form that you have control of. If it's a form that you are in charge of, you're able to pick it by name. If it's a form that's been shared with you, then actually you need to take the code that's after the form ID. So if I just jump over to a form that I've got that's been shared with me, it'd help if it gave me the full options, but obviously it doesn't. So let's ping over to there. Let's go into forms. Let's go to shared with me. So let's take this one as an example. This isn't going to show up in my list. Instead, I'm going to have to come to the address of it here. And you'll see in the address, there's a bit that says form ID equals. And let me just get a thing on my screen so I can zoom in a bit on there for you. Then you can see what's going on. As if it opens. Go. Okay. So if I just do that, come on, agree. Okay. There we go, zoomed up a bit. So up the top here, I'm just going to have to cancel out of it because it doesn't let me zoom straight away. It's a good tool, this Zoom It, but you do have to have it showing what you want it to show before zooming in. There we go. So it's this part here, this form ID that you're looking for. And once you've got that there, it's all this bit afterwards. You copy that, you put that in to where it says form ID in Power Automate, and then it knows that's the form you're talking about. It's the same in get response ID details. In the form ID, you get that, and then you choose response ID. So what I've done here, I've got this one and this one for my database part. And I do add an action. I search for user, and it's Office 365 users, and I've chosen the Get Manager option. So that's our Get Manager option, and popped that in, and put in the email address of the user. So that now gets their manager for us from that. I've then got another one that I've renamed employee. This is just to make it easier later. So I've renamed that manager, I've renamed that one employee, And in there, I put in the employee's email address into that. It then adds rows into a table, same as we've done before. It's found the document and it's putting in the information for us in there. I've then got some conditions because based on what they say, we need to follow it up further with HR. So our first one is based on this question, which is considering everything that you filled in, as a manager, are you happy for your member of staff to come back on site? Ideally, they're going to say yes, but it might be that they say no. So if it says yes, we send an email just confirming. Sorry, if they've said no, it sends an email at this point saying failed risk assessment. And it sends it to the responder, it sends it to the employee, and we CC in health and safety and HR. And we have it come from health and safety to them. And it's just saying, this is to confirm you've just completed the enhanced risk assessment for this person. And as their manager, you are not happy with the level of risk control. Please email HR advice as soon as possible. So we've even set it up that the reply to is HR advice. So if they reply to this email address, it goes straight back. What we've also done is then say, we then terminate at this part. And we want it to terminate and say that it succeeded. We don't want it to fail. The thing has succeeded and gone through, but it's sent that warning through. If it doesn't contain a no, we then move on to another condition set. And at the end, it's of this thing, it says, has the employee said that they're happy with it as well? And again, we've got, if they've said no on this one, again, that same email goes through, but instead of it saying that as the manager you've said no, it says the member of staff has said no. So that then again goes through. It's as if it's come from health and safety and it's going to HR advice as the reply. We've also added an if no, and this sends another email. And again, this time it says, you've completed this, and it's sending them a log of everything that was in it. And this is going to the manager and it's going to the employee. And at the end, we've got, you have both confirmed you are happy with the results. And it's got in bold what the question was, and then in regular text what their answer was. If you feel any of this is in error, please email HR as soon as possible. So that then has automatically sent an email, and it's sent automatic emails based on what they've responded in that form for us. So lots of things in there that's really useful. And you can have, how many was it? I think it's, you can have 8 levels of going yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, before it breaks. What you can have is have varying levels where you've got a condition in, you've got a yes or no answer to that, that's fine. And then you bring in a new one underneath as a new step, as long as you've put in the terminates at the right part. So this terminate one basically means once it's reached this point, don't go any further with the Power Automate and say whether it's succeeded or failed. So if you put in failed, it's going to send a warning email to somebody. If you put in succeeded, then that's fine. It classes as succeeded. It's gone through successfully. I'll just see if I can find one where we've got that sort of embedding going in, because we've been recently changing lots of different ones, so I'm not sure. Which one would it be? Possibly that one. Right, yes, here's one where we've got that set up. So when a new response is submitted, get the response details from it, and then we've got our conditions in. So with these, I've put, are these equal to these things? If yes, send an email to them. If no, do nothing. It then looks at another set of information where it says, is this equal to these things? Now, I set this up a while back before I realized there's another way of doing this rather than having different steps. And I'll come to that in a second. But you can see we've managed to get 13 Boolean conditions coming through here. Let me have a look. It can talk to all sorts of systems. It's not just Microsoft World. If I show you the connectors in a moment, you'll see the different things that are there. Mine are all the Microsoft World because that is Microsoft that we're using. And in our college, I'll just see if I can find the one that I'm thinking of. There we go, staff tests. So for this one, it's when a new response is submitted, get the response details, get the user profile, get the manager, put it in a table for us. I've then got a condition set up here. Is the test result positive for it? If yes, we've got a switch in place here. So the switch is based on the department thing. And you have various cases. So if the department is maritime operations, send an email to the head of maritime operations. If the department is offshore, send an email to the head of offshore. And you can put in all the different departments here based on what that one says for it. So here's our thing that we're looking at. And with a switch, it looks at what is written within that particular field for you. So you have to make sure you've got it exactly right, otherwise it's not going to work. And then our final one is, if not, terminate it on there. So you've got lots of different options that you can bring in through that switch connector. So instead of having to do, is the condition this? Yes, no, is the condition this? And it's the same thing that you're doing the condition for each time. You'd use a switch for it instead. So that just makes it a lot tidier, a lot easier for you. With this one as well, we set it up that if something failed somewhere, we just wanted to have a basic email being sent out to the head of maritime and offshore if it was missing the manager row, because sometimes people can be if they're new starters, for instance. So looking at the connectors on the next bit, there are hundreds. There's something like 300 or so different connectors on here. So we've got all the connectors there. I'm just going to scroll down through them. So we've got kept user forms, Intel HR, Floatic, Teams, Office, all the Office stuff is in there, but not all of them are free. That's important to know as well. Microsoft Word has one that's not free, but that would allow you to automatically print out certificates. They've recently added OneNote for Business. I've not even seen what that one does that yet, but that could be another powerful one for us. We've got Twitter in there, Excel, Google Calendar, Gmail, To-Dos, MSN Weather, Trello's in there, Google Drive, Slack has been added recently. You have loads of different options in there for things that you can do as connectors. So based on what's happened with your trigger, then these are the things that you can make do things for you. So lots and lots of different things in there. Bear in mind, not all are free. Bear in mind that not all of them are GDPR cleared either. So you've got to know what it is that you're using for there. So we want translator. Let's have a look. So with Microsoft products, for the most part, you've got what's it called? The immersive reader. So as long as something's got the immersive reader to it, you've got the translator in there. But let's see what happens if I search for translate. Yeah, they've not been able to find anything specifically for translate about translator. There you go, Microsoft Translator. So if I click on that connector, it's going to tell you what it can do. So there's one that it's got as a suggestion, Edu Translate newsletter. So let's see what that's got. So it seems, now I don't actually have the connector for Translator V2, so it's not going to let me have a look at it, unfortunately. But it seems like it's taking an Office 365 document, it's putting it through Translator into Teams, it's then converting it again and putting it back into Outlook. So you've got a way of using Translate there, but you would need to talk to your IT department to make sure you had access to this one, which at the moment I don't currently have access to. I can ask to get the access from my IT department, but I know I'm not going to get it at the moment to demonstrate it to you. There are lots of templates out there as well, all sorts of different ones that are already set up for you to just jump in and fill in the information as you need it. So lots of different things here. Get a push notification to your phone when a new file's added to OneDrive for Business. Save Gmail attachments directly to your Google Drive. Email you a list of upcoming calendar events. All sorts of different things that are in there. And there's featured ones. That's okay, baby. You okay? Yeah, you hurt your nose because you headbutted me, didn't you?
Yeah.
So we've got featured ones. We've got ones that can be shared with different people. Ones that have been set up for remote working. There's approval processes. So when people have submitted things or done various things, then you can set up. Yes, I'll put Tiger on for you, baby. You can set up that there's approval processes before files get added to SharePoints. You can set up that there's approval processes before things go into team meetings. All sorts of different things that you can have there. So, yeah, lots of different things. Yep, that's the one for you on that one, Samantha. Just having another look at things. Sorry, getting slightly distracted by my daughter. Bear with me a second. There we go. When you go on to create as options, you've got the basic setups for you, automated ones. You've got instant ones. They're ones that start with a button. You've got scheduled ones. They've now got desktop ones as well. And your desktop one is free for all Office users. I've not actually explored that yet, but that's basically getting things in your desktop environment, doing things automatically for you. And there's business process ones as well. So the automated ones are triggered by an event. The cloud ones are triggered manually. The scheduled ones are triggered at a certain time. And then we've got our business ones that's guiding people through a step-by-step process. So actually, as you set that up, it's this bit's been done. It's now automatically going to send the user the next bit that they need to do. There's all sorts of different ways that you can build things. I love the fact as well that they haven't actually updated this bit yet. It says 3 ways to make a flow. There's many ways to make a flow. You've got from blank, from templates, and from connectors. What is it that you're actually wanting to do? All sorts of different things there for you. And it's designed to be easy. Everything is just a case of going and click and say different things for it. You can get more. There's all sorts of more things that you can go into with it as well. I've been recently setting up a banking one, which isn't going to work at the moment because we've not set it up properly, and the questions on the form have changed. But we're getting the user profile from it, and then we're looking at which center has it been. And if it is, put it into this certain table. If it's not been, put it into a different table for it. So actually, looking at this now, knowing what I know, I could have used a switch for this one instead. So all sorts of different things that you can be putting in there. And this is just brushing the surface. There is so many applications that there are on here. But you can see the difference between, if you look at the going with the flow one that I did, I just guided through setting up just a form into an Outlook, into an Excel spreadsheet. There is so much more that can be done now. And this is now almost a year on from that last one. And already I'm starting to do deeper things and find more things that can be done with it. If you've got it as part of your system, you can build AI using this, and it can actually start building models with it. This works as the background for some Power App stuff that you've got as well. It can work as a background for some Power BI things. They all link into one another. I believe you need to have an A3 subscription for it to work for you. But I don't know. What do I recommend for finding out how to do things in Power Automate? Honestly, I use Google a lot for it, and I will often just search for Power Automate and then whatever it is that I'm looking for after that, and just see what comes up for there. We've also got, there's a thing called Microsoft Learn. That's recently come out. Well, I'll say recently. It's been going for about a year. But on here, it's a bit like the MEC for you. You're able to go in to this Learn bit. You're able to search by product. So there's Power Platform. And there's loads of things on here where you can go in and you can get badges for doing stuff. Thanks, Chris, for sharing that in there. At the moment, I don't manage access to premium connectors for staff or additional costs because that's above my pay grade. I just use the stuff that they give me for free on that one. It would be through your IT management system on there. Yes, the AI Builder has a translation function as well, but it is an additional cost because it goes through the Azure for you. Now, I understand from my understanding things of Azure that you get a budget assigned to you. And if you go above that budget, then it no longer works. That's how your IT can set it up. So you could have things that are set to run in the background that suddenly stop working because you've used your budget for the year. So just be warned that is there as a thing. It's pennies every time that somebody clicks into it, but those pennies can add up, can't they? So just be aware of that and talk with your IT on that one. Yeah, anybody who's going to use your flows will need an A3 or higher license, I believe, for it. Although they have released Desktop Automate for free for all Windows users recently. I'm just going back through all the questions on it at the moment. I think we've caught up on those ones. Yes. Yeah. Are there any other questions? I'll start it. It will break part if it's part of the form that is required for conditions. Yes, it will break your flow. If it's filling in spreadsheets or stuff like that, and that's all it's doing, it just won't fill in that part anymore. So just bear that in mind. It has got intelligent enough that if somebody changes a question, it is able to understand that's what that was. Yeah, it's just a case of playing with it, Matt, and seeing what's there and seeing what options there are for you. Well, in theory, you could set it up to mark essay questions where you're looking for specific terminology being used. So you could almost make Microsoft Forms work as a fill in the blank word thing, but you'd have to preempt every single thing that they said, and it wouldn't be able to give them feedback right at the start. You'd have to have an email going out to them, and it'd say, if you'd set up an if for it and say, if this question answer contains this phrase or contains this word, then send an email to them. It's good for things like well-being as well. If you're doing a well-being form and you want to flag it off, yeah, you would be better putting it through something like the bot framework for that. But if you're wanting to change, if you have a generic well-being form and you want to change the team that gets it based on what they've ticked on a box for you, you can do that with this. Thank you, Sam. So the GDPR, it is using the data for a use that it's already being used for. Teams is already doing that. So it should be fine, but just bear in mind the people who can see these things and see the back end of it will have access to that data as well, which isn't necessarily something that they have access to ordinarily. The main thing with GDPR I've found is I wanted to have a PDF made. There is a software that can do that, but it doesn't. It doesn't comply with GDPR in that point because where the PDF thing was from. Let's have a look. The Twitter content posted to teams, I've not actually tried doing it yet, so I don't know if it is coherent. Again, it can be the devil in the detail for it. No, I haven't played with that yet, but you are able to set up your own cards for things. So you are able to set up and say, when this happens, I want that to happen. No, unfortunately, not without having premium for it. But it is premium, which is an absolute pain in the bum. But if you did have that, what it can do is it can convert Word documents to PDF, and you can actually start creating Word documents as well. So you basically you create the Word document like a form, and you say this is where I want the things to go. There is a way in Forms to make it into a thing. I don't know if you're aware of that one. So if I go for this one, there's no responses on that one actually. Let's go for one that does have a response. Let's go for that one. Let's go into our responses. If you go into view responses, you click these three dots, you can then print it as a PDF. So if you change the printer to save as PDF, there you go, you're now able to print that response as a PDF for you. So that's there for you. I wasn't aware that there's a SharePoint convert file command that we can use. That would be quite good. But yeah, that will get you a PDF of that particular response. It's great if you've got like 15 or so responses, not so great if you've got 300 or so.